Thank you so much, Dr. Carol.
You're welcome. We are live, Dr. Sherry. It's exciting to be here this afternoon.
Thank you. And so we can be great stewards of time. I'm going to go on, and it is 4:24, and we're going to go on and get started. So we're going to kick this our ancestral sister circle off with Dr. Carol, and she's going to lead us in a meditation. We will be pouring libations, and we will also be doing some guided imagery if there's time. And then I'm going to follow up with some tips for our post COVID and post 2020 recovery, because we have to be, ladies, very intentional. What I've seen, and I have a practice of predominantly African American women, high functioning women. That's the teachers and the educators and the physicians and the nurses and the attorneys and the engineers, the whole gamut. And what I am seeing is that we are just trying to pick up pre-COVID style. So whatever we were doing pre-COVID March 2020, that's what we're trying to step back into. And a level of stress and the level of overwhelm that we have experienced, we will not thrive if if that's our go-to model. So we're going to be providing you with a lot of tips and also some mindfulness activities. Dr. Carol is my mindfulness meditation coach, and I love that I'm working with her because it is forcing me to sit my ass down and to think about myself and do some intentional healing. So I'm going to give it to Dr. Carol. So welcome everyone, and again, thank you, Dr. Carol, for allowing the NMA Women's Health section to do this today.
Oh, well, it is my honor and my pleasure. We are living in a day and age where it needs to be an inside job, Dr. Sherry.
Yes.
It's like, the knight in shining armor, that person that we're looking to rescue us and scoop down. It's not going to happen like that. We really have to learn and understand self-care. And I don't mean getting a manicure and a pedicure.
Right.
That's self-maintenance, and all of that is good. But this is self-care. This is your prayer life. This is your meditation life. This is your contemplative life. This is your journaling. This is you getting enough rest, resting when you need to rest and you know you need to get this rest. This is you up leveling your game around nutrition and being mindful about what you're putting into this body temple. So let's get going on some settling practices, some honoring practices that can be helpful to us moving forward into these ongoing stressful times, right? Ongoing. And one of the things that I'm going to invite our participants to do, two things. One, I want them to go ahead and, if they can at this time, all right, now we're getting feedback. We've got you on here twice. So I'm going to put you on mute, Dr. Sherry. All right. There we go. So Dr. Sherry is on mute, and we just have me as people are coming on. And I'm going to invite you to bring into your space something that, when you look at it, just represents strength and fortitude for you. So I have here, let me see, get this a little bit closer. This is my grandmother's teacup. My grandmother, Marion Josephine Harvey. And she was the first person that I began to understand what self-care was about, what self-care really meant. And she would sit every day, and she had 7 beautiful, and it had to be this bone china teacups, where she would, about 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, just stop everything, sit down, and pour herself a lovely afternoon cup of tea. And I used to love this as a little girl when I would come home from school and I'd have to put my play clothes on first. And she would just stop, and I say, Nana, how come you drink it out of such a pretty cup? And she says, because it reminds me that I'm pretty. It reminds me that I'm beautiful. It reminds me to step into a place of freedom. And I didn't know all of what that meant when I was a young child, but I have come to sense, understand that. So this teacup for me represents that me time, that nurturing time, that self nurture. So if you could just choose something now, put it in your space. So when you look at it, it almost becomes a conditioned response to you, right? That you just relax. And I'm asking you to do that because it's this teacup actually has water in it. It's going to be part of the libation ceremony that we pour as we open up this space for ourselves, as we bring in our ancestors, as we are reminded of the collective strength and perseverance of our ancestral lineage. Now, libations are found throughout the continent of Africa, in many countries of Africa. And we're looking upon them as a wisdom tradition to remind us of our lineage, to remind us of our strength. Traditionally, you pour libations on the ground or you pour libations into a plant. This was a plant that was given to my mom when she was first diagnosed with her illness. And I just love this plant. This plant has been with me for the past year and change. So it's been with me through the pandemic. And it is reminds me, and the plants can be our great teachers. This plant has no thought of not blooming. This plant has no thought of not becoming all that God intended her to be. So we need to be more like the plants, of having no thought of not blooming, of not becoming all God intended us to be. And I'm just going to bring Dr. Sherry right on so we can see her beautiful face as we do this libation ceremony. So, Dr. Sherry, I'm going to ask you, I'm going to unmute you, and I'm going to ask you, do I have your permission to continue to pour the libation ceremony?
Yes, Dr. Carol, you do.
All right. And I'm going to ask everyone at home just to call out the word Ashe. Call out the word Ashe after each acknowledgement, each pouring. And you can use this with stones, you can use this with precious environments. And so Dr. Sherry was standing in the gap for the elders of the community as we pour this libation. And again, this is not meant to be in any religious sense or to compete with the God of your understanding. As a matter of fact, it can be done prayerfully as you call in the God of your understanding, right? This is just some ancestral wisdom coming forward, coming forward. And if you're out there on YouTube or Facebook Live or NMA, please go ahead, drop in the chat, let us know where you're from. And if there's an ancestor whose name you'd like to put in the chat, as we acknowledge all of those who have gone before us, please go ahead and drop that in the chat. So I open our time together, our Ancestral Women's Healing Circle, by first acknowledging that we are here together this afternoon to support each other, to honor each other, to understand that we have been through a hard thing this past year and we are here to restore and renew. Ashe.
Ashe.
I recognize that perhaps we gather together, and as we gather together today, we gather together on the ancestral lands of people that some feel have been overlooked and forgotten. And that's the indigenous people that were here before us. And we want to recognize and call that in as well. I'm here at the land of the Lanai Lenape on the eastern shore of New Jersey. And we want to recognize these truths. We want to call forward good relations and good karma. And we understand that things have occurred on all these lands where we find ourselves sitting crimes against the indigenous people. And we honor you, we see you, we recognize your ancestors and your contributions as well. Ashe.
Ashe.
And finally, we remember those who lost their names through the crime of enslavement. Some were given names, but others were just listed in wills by their value, and we cannot know the names that they and those that love them would use. We honor them and we hold them in the light. Ashe.
Ashe.
Mm, so beautiful. Something else, number two, that's so important is coming into full awareness, into present moment awareness. So before we go into our meditation or as a way to guide us into our meditation, I'm just going to invite some gentle awareness, some gentle noticing, and you could do it right where you are from a seated position. It's so important now to tap in and to be aware and to be aware. So I'm going to ask you to cross your limbs, place your feet on the floor, and to just notice how that feels. Notice how that feels when the feet are there resting on the floor. Notice how that feels, and notice if you seem to be shifted more to one side than the other. And see if you could bring yourself into center, into center. The limbs are uncrossed, the arms are uncrossed, and just noticing. So we have Mabel and Margaret who have joined us, and I welcome that you are here in the circle with us as well. So thank you so much for coming. Yes, and DM Jones is here with us in the circle as well. Thank you so much for coming and supporting. Now, if you're watching, just go ahead and invite people to join in. Invite people to join in. This is for everyone. This is for everyone. Especially important today because we're focusing on our women's health. But invite anyone to join and to settle. And I invite you now to just take a moment to gently close your eyes and notice if it feels supportive to do so. Notice if it feels supportive to do so. Beautiful. And just notice how the body begins to release as we turn inward. Beautiful. I invite you now to take a nice deep cleansing breath in through the nose and let that breath out through the mouth. Again, take a nice deep cleansing breath in through the nose and let that breath out through the mouth. And also to notice what's shifting for you. In what ways are you allowing yourself to come into a state of relaxed awareness, which, by the way, is the definition of meditation? On your next breath, I'd like you to gently open your eyes and go ahead and look up. Look up and notice. And maybe if you've been in this room or your environment 1,000 times before, but you never really looked and saw what was above you. See and take that in. Breathe in. Exhale and go ahead and look down. Look down at your lap. Beyond that, look down at your feet. Look at the floor around you. See and notice. And again, what are you seeing? What are you noticing? Perhaps for the first time. And just notice. Breathe and look over your right shoulder, noticing and seeing. Take it in, really see and notice. Turn, look over your left shoulder, breathe in, see and notice. Now go ahead, look behind you, see and notice. Take it in, take it in, take it in. Breathe in. Exhale, go and look over the other shoulder. See and notice and take it in. Take it in. Now come back to the front, come back to the center and lean back a little, placing one hand on the heart and one hand on the belly. As you breathe in, feeling the chest rise and fall. Rise and fall. Rise and fall. Notice the movement in the torso and imagine that you are leaning back and your ancestors are supporting you, holding you up. These are the shoulders upon which we are standing. Feel that and invite them in. Let them in. And just notice what's true for you right now. Beautiful. And as we are here in this space of opening, this space of relaxed awareness, breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth, I want you to just take in this little physics fact. Because when you move from this, when we end our time together in about 30 minutes or so, I want you to move about the rest of your evening mindfully and understand that when we are walking, the head moves faster than the feet. In the same body, it looks like everything's moving at the same time, and the slower pace of our feet. As we imagine ourselves moving forward, stepping forward is a wonderful reminder to slow down, to only go as fast as the slowest part of us wants to go. Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that beautiful? In this better normal that we are creating, we don't have to rush into everything so much, hell bent for fury, as my mother would say. We can take our time. We can look around. We can notice what's going on. We can notice our surroundings. We can become present to the agency of right now. Let us take a nice collective breath in as we come into presence, as we come into solidarity with one another, understanding that as we come into balance internally, that reflects externally. And all of our relationships after engaging in this practice right here, right now, all of our conversations that ensue after this are going to be deeper, better, more connected. Let's go inward once more, find the place inside the body that feels most at ease right now, that is most open, and place the sense of your smile right there. Now, from the sense of your smile, let everything on the inside have a sense of it's all right, it's all right. And from that sense of comfort, that sense of safety, let that smile begin to bubble up to your lips. Go ahead and wiggle your fingers and your toes, stretching in a way that feels good right now, opening your heart, opening the mind and body, knowing that things are different right now, that things have changed. Let that smile bubble from your lips to your eyes. And here we are, So, Dr. Sherry, let me see. What? Where is it? Yeah, we're going to unmute you.
Okay.
How you doing right now, Dr. Sherry?
I am doing well. I think I'm going to go inside because the wonderful airport of Atlanta, the largest airport in the world, is right behind me. But I am doing well. When I first began to do this practice with Dr. Carol, I'm just going inside. I had to force myself to find a smile. And what just came to me was the fact that I can, if I have my whole body functioning and breathing and living, and I can't find a smile somewhere, then truly I am out of order. So I was focusing, I'm just going inside to my office. I was focusing today to find a smile. And so I'm modeling what I'm asking you to do as well, listeners. Okay.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the smile actually causes a physiological response in our body
Mm,
that 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 really taps into our central nervous system. So it's a wonderful fail safe to work on your smile. You work on your smile. So even if you're not initially feeling it, you do that great big smile that causes the crinkle in your eyes. Your brain chemistry begins to shift. It kind of goes along with that statement, fake it till you make it. So
yeah.
your body, it's a wonderful default for your body to go into the smile. So that's why in the guided meditation, I ask you to find your smile. I ask you to let that smile make the journey, saying that everything is all right, and let it come up to your lips and then from your lips to your eyes. And we have a big heart from Leanne. So thank you so much, Leanne, for sharing that. And also, Dr. Sherry, when we just, that like, what was that? 5 minutes of noticing the breath, of taking a deep breath. What did you notice for yourself? Because this is the other part of this. There's a lot that's going on in the brain and the central nervous system, and there's a lot that's going on physically. What did you notice for yourself in that?
Well, I noticed that I don't take enough time to focus on my breath and focus on and really respect the fact that the breath can be there's so much recovery and peace and healing and sort of, and like you said, centering with the breath. And I think that, and I'm going to speak for other people, but also myself, we can become so intellectualized and not even be thinking about just those not minimum, but those aspects of ourselves. So when I was breathing, I was really trying to focus on the breath is not bigger than me. I'm not too big to for this practice to work. And if I am thinking that, then I've got to adjust my thinking because my thinking indeed is limited. Limited.
Yes, and there are, well, people will tell me, that they struggle with contemplative practices, they struggle with meditation. And I just invite people to engage like an experiment. And I say, you haven't found the contemplative practice
Mm.
that works for you, because there are a lot of ways in, there are a lot of different ways of approaching. Would you like to do another little experiment?
Yes, please.
All right. So another way is to do something that's called these are all called settling practices. They really tap into that polyvagal response from our vagus nerve, which is what fine tunes our autonomic nervous system, that sympathetic overdrive, right? That fight or flight, or the parasympathetic, the freeze response. And what we're doing with all of these practices is fine tuning that polyvagal response mediated by our vagus nerve. So I'm going to ask everyone just to put web of thumb to web of thumb. And it kind of looks like butterfly wings. And you're going to press on the spot that's right beneath your collarbone. And right there, you might even find a little sore spot if you kind of press in there and kind of circle a little bit, or a little bit tenderness there. There are some very small lymph nodes there, which might be a little tender or sore. This is also, according to Chinese medicine, a meridian center, or a nervous plexus, as we would think in more Western terms. And when we do something that crosses the midline, the brain likes it, and it helps to get our vagus nerve online and our autonomic nervous system balancing out. So this, we can, it looks like butterfly wings. You can release and press, release and press, or you can simply alternate. And you can alternate the speed or the pressure. And I always tell people, do what feels good for you. So sometimes I like a little bit lighter, faster response. And just tune in and check in. And you ask yourself, does this feel nurturing to me right now? Does this feel supportive to me right now? And it helps to keep breathing. Breathing is always good. Go ahead and shake that out. Shake that out, Dr. Sherry.
Okay.
And now let's do one more. I'm going to ask you to extend your hands here and opposite hand to opposite shoulder. And just go ahead and squeeze. So a little self-massage technique here, right at the base of the neck. And if you want to, little circle with the head. And go the other way. Beautiful. Change sides. Again, note we're still crossing the midline. We're still crossing the midline. Let that feel good. Circle, or if that's too much, you can stop pressing and just circle the head. And then add in that little bit of massage here. I know I feel a little tension on this side myself. Now I'm changing. And here I'm just going to brush down, brush straight down. Changing, go to the other side and brush straight down. And resting both hands here on the heart, closing the eyes again. Nice deep cleansing breath in through the nose. And exhale. And again, breathe in. And exhale. And once more, breathe in. And exhale. Beautiful. And just release and check in with yourself. And ask, I would tell people, ask yourself, what did you notice? What did you notice? What's true for you? What just happened? What did you notice, Dr. Sherry?
I noticed um, that I almost have this sense of like of pride and I don't know, proudness. Pride. It's not pride. I just feel happy that I am choosing to be well.
Mm, mm-hmm.
Just even just doing these practices just has not been, I've just not been consistent, and how just being willing to embrace a different walk. And so that's what I was just sitting here, just, on a Sunday afternoon, touching myself and brushing the whatever out of my energy. How that's not something I have routinely done, but it is necessary. So that's what I was reflecting on.
That's a beautiful journey. How, again, you used your imagination to take you on that journey. So, like, I'm just brushing away
Yeah,
the stuff I want to get off of me, that is no longer useful, that I
right.
don't need that anymore. Let that go. And then again, that beautiful, self-soothing technique, thumbs crossed here, to really kind of lock that in and literally bring into your body through your own sense of touch that resilience, that reassurance. And so Pamela is saying the brushing method felt good! Exclamation point.
Mhm.
So far we've done four things. We started with a libation ceremony to honor and to bring in our ancestors.
Mhm.
Then we did a bit of a guided meditation. We used our breath, the cleansing breaths.
Mhm.
We placed the smile on the inside and let that smile travel to give us again that sense of safety and resilience. We noticed where we were in time and space as part of that meditation. And then we've done these settling techniques where this one is called the butterfly, this one is called the alternate brushing. So, again, these things that tap into our physiology, our brain, releasing neurotransmitters, changing the frequency of brain wave firing, and also balancing out our autonomic nervous system. So, simple yet profound, simple yet challenging, because as you said, Dr. Sherry, a lot of us don't think to do this, or some of us don't know to do these things. Let's see. Let's see. Alaba, I hope I didn't mispronounce your name. I noticed the tension that existed in my neck and trapezius muscles. Yes. And noticing that, how long have you been carrying that without noticing? And what is that accumulative tension doing to you? And this is a way of breaking through that. So, Dr. Sherry, I'm just looking at the time. We have a few minutes left. Dr. Sherry, what are some of the tips some of the pearls that you have to bring to our audience today that
Yeah.
can help pull all of this together?
Okay. Well, thank you so much again, Dr. Carol. And I'm just gonna talk just a few minutes about tips. Now we know that trauma is in the body. And I don't think this when I was in medical school, that's not how we thought about trauma. But we know that trauma is in the body. It's not just in the mind. It's everywhere, every cell, every tissue. So that's why it's so important that we have we there's movement, there's exercise, but there's also things that we can do to shift energy. So one of the things that I've been suggesting more recently to my women is Reiki, and that is a process in which you're with a professional and they're helping to shift the energy through different movements from your body. And one of the reasons why that is so, let me just tell you how it came to my awareness that something else was needed was that Zoloft is one of the medications that we prescribe for post-traumatic stress disorder. And I had so many of my Black women with protracted trauma, ongoing trauma, even before COVID, who were not getting well, even with the psychotherapy and the medication. And so what they had mentioned was cannabis or CBD help to relieve the tension from the body. And so I really am a proponent that there has to be some type of shifting, especially because of COVID and what the social racial injustice events, the activities that we're doing to push the energy throughout our body. And I have suggested at least 3 to 4 days a week. So yes, we are exercising, but I'm suggesting that there be some type of meditation, yoga, Reiki. There are saunas. There's also salt rooms that are around different places around the U.S. that we are doing to really embrace wellness, like Dr. Carol said, those making those physiological shifts differently. Another thing that we have to do is that we have to step back in terms of our activities. I was so surprised about the number of Black women physicians who were busier during COVID, busier. So we've made these shifts home. Our children have made these shifts to working from, I mean, from going to school at home, and yet we have over scheduled. We're yet scheduled again. And ladies, I'm telling you, my colleagues and I, all psychiatrists, my closest colleagues, our African American patients have gotten the most ill that we have ever experienced, and that is in terms of our working women and also our teenagers. And so I'm going to challenge everyone to dial everything back. That's one. Number two, not make any additional commitments to your schedule, to your life this year if you have to. So if we're not already a part of two different women's groups, I'm going to challenge us not to add a third one, or not to add any extra committees, any extra activities. And another thing that I am also really suggesting is that we we begin to see the word no as a part of our healing and part of resistance. So when we are asked to see additional patients and we're already full, and when we're asked to stay later yet another hour and we've not done any exercising, we've got to. I'm going to challenge us to begin to say the word no and challenge the fear. And usually it's the catastrophized belief and fear that something negative will happen. Many of us are working um, our progressive evaluations, our annual reviews. We're doing well, all threes, if not fours and fives. There are usually no issues because we dot I's and we cross T's. But yet, when we're asked to take on other tasks, the hyper alertness, that trauma response of stuff is going to happen kicks in, and so then we don't say no. So I'm going to challenge us to say no, and also if we are not able to say no in the ways that will create wellness in our lives, that is here. This is the time to seek help. This is the time to reach out to Dr. Sherry. We have Dr. Carol, the meditation mindfulness coach. She's my meditation mindfulness coach. There's therapists, there's coaches. There's got to be accountability because I'm telling you, ladies, I do not think that we're going to survive 2020 using the old ways of coping. I do not think that we're going to survive it. So, and that means that's an increase of morbidity, an increase of mortality and sickness. That also means more and more dysregulation of our cortisol in our bodies, which worsen everything. It's more inflammation that's circling around, and we know inflammation is a part of why, and the stress response is why African Americans, part of why the African Americans experience most of the preventable health challenges more than any other person. Okay.
Yes, this is so important, Dr. Sherry, because as we learn more and more about the social determinants of health, and it is how the dysfunction from those social determinants of health really determine our health outcomes, determine the depth of our mortality and our morbidity. We are dying sooner, we are sicker. It is so important that these skills of self regulation become a part of our personal way of life. It really is. We're talking about we have to make these our lifestyle. We
Yes.
look at all the stress weight and the emotional eating. So deranged eating, dysfunctional eating, eating dysfunctional foods. We have to clean all that up. So if you're going to do anything, concentrate on that because the life that you're likely to be saving is your own.
Yes.
And I
Absolutely.
love that. Someone else is saying, Lee Ann is saying, no is a complete sentence. And
No,
yes, it is.
that's
And it's a
right.
beautiful sentence
Yes.
because saying no on one hand, on the other hand, is saying life. saying
Yes.
yes to life and to
Yes.
saying yes to life, to having it more abundantly. And I love that you brought in Reiki. I'm a Reiki master. And I can tell you that all of these things that I have studied in these practices that are a part of my life are things that if you decide to take this on, and if you are in the healing professions, if you are a physician, for example, and you begin to introduce this into your patient population, you will go from giving them a fish to teaching them how to fish. And your patients will love you, and your fulfillment in your work will
Mm,
grow exponentially.
yeah. Mm, I love that. I love that. Yes. Ooh, I'm just thinking. So part of what my wellness has been, and I know we're wrapping up, is um, committing to meditation. And I know I wasn't going to do it by myself, so I used Dr. Carol. I've been using. We've been working together about 4 or 5 weeks now. Most of COVID, I had a fitness trainer midday, so we were forced to stop working 3 days a week. Another thing is in terms of eating that I am a muncher. I will eat. My mom says, I say I'm greedy, and my mom says, don't call yourself greedy. You're not greedy. I'm like, girl, I am greedy. I'm greedy. So, so we have committed to doing some meal preparation, and that also means that I'm also eating separately from my husband because it just makes sense in terms of our diets because he's a vegetarian, and I realized that my eating with him meant that my eating was less protein, and so I knew I was gaining weight that way, and also in terms of being hormonal in menopause, I have been also getting um, estrogen and testosterone pellets because I know that my mood just trunked and also my weight has increased. So these are just some of the things that as a psychiatrist I've done. I've reached out to marital counselors and other coaches as well because the healers have got to be intentional in healing. And the more minds that we have to help us be well, that means I'm saying yes to my life. And so I'm going to also suggest for parents, and I see more of this parents, especially physician parents, please allow your children to have their own separate space of healing that's independent of you. So yes, you may refill the prescription, okay, once, but your child needs to have their own space, their own autonomy, health autonomy, separate from you. So I'm going to suggest that you all step out of your child's wellness and let them handle it for themselves if they're old enough.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Well, we could probably talk hours about this, an important topic. And Dr. Sharon, I hope we will continue to have many conversations like this that we just share with our communities, with our circles of influence,
Yeah.
because now is the time. Now is the time for us to really act on all of this information.
Yes, yes. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. This was the first Ancestral Sister Circle, and thank you again for Dr. Carol for joining me. And please continue to follow the NMA Women's Health Section Facebook page, and we hope to have many more programs, activities, lives, and also just a place for information. So, take care, and we will see you all later. Thank you so
All
much.
right.
Bye.
Bye.